Hi everyone, it's Irene Latham here at my Purple Horse Poetry Studio and Music Room in North Central Alabama, saying hello to all my friends at Georgia Center for the Book. I was born in Georgia, so I have lots of connections and attachment to the state. So I'm so happy to be talking with you today. I have a presentation ready for you. Let me just pull it up. During this pandemic, it was my honor and privilege to have quite a few books released. I actually had 5 books come out during the pandemic. So I thought I would just book talk those books and also give you a little something that you can do to interact with each of these books. So without further ado, this is Irene Latham's COVID-19 Children's Book Collection featuring 5 books released during the pandemic. Here they are: The Catman of Aleppo, Dictionary for a Better World, D39, A Robodog's Journey, This Poem is a Nest, and 9, A Book of Nonfiction Poems. So you can tell right away that I love writing a bunch of different things. I love poetry, I love animals, I love words and stories. I'm excited to share them with you today. The first one I want to share is The Catman of Aleppo. I wrote this book with my good friend Kareem Shamsi Basha, who immigrated from Syria, and the book is set in Aleppo, Syria, and you can see that shiny silver sticker, and that's because of the amazing Yuko Shimizu, the illustrator. Her work earned a Caldecott honor, which was just a wonderful, happy day for all of us in celebrating the Catman's story, because the Catman is a real person who lives in Aleppo, and during the thick of the fighting in Syria, he, instead of fleeing like so many did and had to for their own safety, he stayed and he helped take care of the cats. So the story really touched both me and Kareem, our lives, and of course Yuko, who did a tremendous amount of research to illustrate this book in an accurate way, because it is nonfiction. So she used a lot of photos to help guide her on the illustration journey. One of my favorite spreads in the book is this one. This is when Allah, after being an ambulance driver and feeding 1 or 2 cats, suddenly has a bunch of cats coming to him every single day, and he wants to be able to take care of them all. So here's something for you, listeners. How many cats do you think are on this spread? I'm going to give you just a minute to visualize and estimate and guesstimate. Yuko did a lot of work on this page, and I will give you the answer at the end of this presentation. So your mission, should you choose to accept it, is guess how many cats. So I will go back one more time for you to get a good look. There you go. And we will move on. So another book I wanted to share with you, Dictionary for a Better World, Poems, Quotes, and Anecdotes from A to Z. This is a book I also wrote with a friend, and this friend is Charles Waters. Charles Waters and I have written numerous projects together, and more will be coming. 2 more books of ours together come next year, so be looking for that. We love working together, and we love poetry. So he was my partner in crime on this one, and Merdot Amini is the illustrator, and she just does such vivid, bright, imaginative work on this book. And so the book contains words that Charles and I think would make the world a better place. And each word has a certain set of things that we did to help illustrate that for you. So the first thing is we tried to define the word using a poem. And then we found a quote that we liked that was related to the word. And then we shared an anecdote, a personal narrative, something that's actually happened to us in relation to the word. And then we give you a try it step. So let me show you what the book looks like on the inside. Here's one of my favorite words in the book. And Charles and I alternated words. So this is one that I picked, create, because being creative during the pandemic and any time in my life has been just the thing that saved me. So if you want to make the world a better place, do something with your hands, do something with your mind, create something. So this poem is a rondel, and that's a particular form of poetry. We tried to challenge ourselves to write things that we had never written before, not just free verse, but lots of forms of poetry. I will read for you the poem. Create. Gather paint and brush, lift guitar and strum. Make something in a mad rush. Who knows what or who you'll become? When you're creating, you can't feel ho-hum. The voice of your worst critic, you, will hush as your imagination begins to thrum. Soon hope begins to gush, each new idea a ripe plum. Feel your face flush. Who knows what or who you'll become? So I hope you will go forth and create something. And then, of course, there's the quote, the anecdote, and the triad piece on this page. So your mission, should you choose to accept it for Dictionary for a Better World, is create your own word, choose your own word, and create a zine poem. I love making these little zines. All it is folding pages. In fact, you can find a less than 2-minute tutorial from Austin Cleon on YouTube about how to fold it. Choose your word, write things inside of it that make you think of the word, write your own personal story, find a quote, write synonyms, write analogies. You can make a wonderful little dictionary entry for your very own word. So moving on, 9, a book of nonets. Guess what? 9 is my favorite number. Now a nonet can be any group of 9. So if you had 9 musicians, you would call it a nonet. Like 4 musicians is a quartet, 9 musicians is a nonet. And when you're talking about a nonet poem, you know 9 is going to factor into the equation. So someone described this book as poetry and math dancing. So I want to show you why. Let's move in. And I also want to mention Amy Huntington, because Amy just did an amazing job on these illustrations. And on each spread, Amy has given you 9 somethings to count. So maybe they're 9 clouds or 9 butterflies or 9 buildings. Each page has that. And also the publisher, Charles Bridge, did this cool thing where the book is actually 9 inches by 9 inches. So the math fun just continues and continues in this book. So just to give you an idea of what a nonet is, how it looks on the page, it has 9 lines, and it's a syllabic, which means we're counting syllables. So syllables, that's a 3-syllable word. So you'll be doing lots of counting when you write these kinds of poems. So here's a poem that seeks to define a nonet. Nonet. Grand poem with 9 lines. 1-syllable first line builds toward a 9-syllable 9th line. Or the reverse. A staircase for poets and readers alike. Any subject, rhyming optional. So you can start with the first syllable on the first line, or you can start your first line with 9 syllables and work your way down to 1. So you've got lots of options. But I love writing nonets. Here is one of my favorites in the book, because you may notice here in my Purple Horse Poetry Studio and Music Room, I have a big instrument sitting back there, and that is a cello. I'm a relatively new cello student. I started as an adult just a few years ago, and I'm still learning. I take lessons every week. But one of my favorite pieces of music across my lifetime has been Beethoven's Ninth. And so I knew when I was writing this book about all kinds of things that are 9 lives, the 9th planet, the 9-banded armadillo, the 9 players on a baseball field. I knew I needed to include Beethoven's Ninth. I'll read to you the poem. Beethoven's Ninth, the composer's final symphony, glorious choral masterpiece, clockwork of sweet strings and brass, rings joy, strikes wide wonder, awakens with notes its creator heard only in his heart. So most of you probably know that Beethoven was deaf at the point of composing this particular symphony. So your mission, should you choose to accept it, is go listen to Beethoven's Ninth, particularly the very end when the choir is there singing the Ode to Joy chorus that you may be familiar with. It will make you happy all day long, I promise. So moving on, book number 4, This Poem is a Nest. This book is such a special little book. I had more fun working on this particular project than any book that I've made so far. This was pure word joy. Joanna Wright is the illustrator, and she just added such whimsy and magic to my words. I'm so grateful. This is a celebration of nature and wordplay through found poetry. So found poetry is, you may have seen blackout poetry. It's when you've already got words and you select certain words in that document or text and create your own poem. So in my book, I created one big nest poem, and it's about the nest. You see there on the cover, a robin's nest, and it goes through the seasons. There's 4 parts to the poem: spring, summer, fall, and winter. And then the rest of the book are the wonderful little found poems, which I call nestlings, that I found in this one big poem. So I found that published in this book, 161 nestlings. I think finding poems is just so much fun, and I think honestly I could at least create that many more poems and that I've already created. I created poems that were about the solar system, poems about emotions, poems about animals, wordplay poems, story poems, poems about writing poetry, season poems, color poems. There's just the whole world is in this one nest, and so much fun. So here's a picture of inside. Sometimes when you're finding poetry, you can create art out of it. So this is just my copy of This Poem is a Nest, and I decided to alter the pages and show you a found poem in one of the sections. So this is the summer section, and you can see I just made a cloud and some sun, and this is the poem that appears in the book. Summer, sky empty, nothing more than weave, trill, buzz. They wait for you. So you can imagine who they are, but I imagine all the critters out there in the world in summertime, sleeping during the day, waiting for you to come out and play. So another example of how you can find poetry is circling the words, and you can see I've done that on the spring section, or you can just list out the words on another piece of paper. And not everybody will be able to alter a book like I have, but your mission, should you choose to accept it, let's go there, is to find your own poem. And I want you to know that on my website, on the school visits page, there's a lot of freebies. And one of the freebies is a packet of 9 poems that you are welcome to print out and color and alter and find however many poems you want. Let's go back and I'll show you this very short poem, a 3-word poem about being mad poem, world, a box. Sometimes the less words you have, the more impact a poem will have. So I loved writing this book. All right, so finally, the final book I want to share with you is the most recent release, and it's a novel. All the rest of the books that I shared with you are picture books or poetry. So this is a novel, and it is told in prose poems. D39, A Robo-Dog's Journey. So you can probably tell from the cover and just the fact that there's a robo-dog in it that we're not really talking about right now. We're talking about the future, and it's a dystopian future, which means things aren't going so great. In fact, things are going so bad that there's a war, which I call a death stretch. There's a lot of made-up words in this book, which made it so fun for me. And dogs have been outlawed. So I have a dog named Rosie, and she is such an important, special, precious part of our lives. I can't imagine if the government said I can't have a dog. Well, that's what the government does in the book. And so that's the rise of robo-dogs. We try to replace real live dogs with robo-dogs. So you may have seen robo-dogs in the news, and they have been in the news in controversial ways. They've been used in wonderful ways and not so wonderful ways. I encourage you just to do a search online about robo-dogs, or on my website there is a discussion guide for D39 that has a bunch of links already prepared for you. But the book is about a journey, and it's about a girl named Clint, and she has a really complicated relationship with her mother. She loves to tinker and fix things, and she learns a lot in the book about what it means to be a hero. And so as I was writing the book, I was learning what it means to be a hero right along with Clint. So it's a story of hope, perseverance, and survival. I hope you'll check it out. Your mission, should you choose to accept it, is invent your own robo-dog. I invented one for this book. In fact, on the back cover, there is a poem that was converted by the publisher into an advertisement. And you can see it says, new solar M fuel. What's that? Well, methanol fuel hybrid comes complete with more than 200 lifelike movements, expressions, and sounds. Faux fur. You pick your color. It's trainable. It responds to verbal commands. It's waterproof. All of those things I knew I wanted my robo-dog to have. So there's an activity sheet on my website that, again, on that school visits freebies page, that I hope you will invent your own robo-dog. So that's the end of my presentation about my COVID-19 children's book collection. I hope you found something there to enjoy. I invite you to get to know more of my work and the resources that are available at my website, irenelatham.com. And also, I want you to know that I post a new poem each week on my website. So there's hundreds of free poems there for you. Anytime you want to check them out, and completely free. And for those of you who are wondering, 128, that's how many cats were on that spread that Yuka Shimizu drew for the Catman of Aleppo. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I just want to give you a big thank you for listening to me today. I hope you have a wonderful summer filled with books. Thank you.